How many more Batmans am I going to see before I die?
That's probably a healthy way to look at it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going well, dude. How are you?
You look real tired.
Yeah, I just got off work, one of the busier shopping days of the year. So, yeah, I'm exhausted, but it is what it is.
I don't think I answered your question. Yeah, I'm fine.
It's fucking cold out, dude.
It sucks. It's going to start getting shitty here.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to snow in the next couple weeks, too. And I know you're scared of shit of snow, so...
Well, I mean, you're talking pretty big for a guy that drives a giant Jeep. So, I mean, I drive a little shitty Elantra. So, yeah, it doesn't do great in snow. Actually, I think this is the first winter that I'll have this car. But my past car was like a Matchbox car. So, yeah.
So, this is a little random. So whenever I said it's cold out, I was thinking about using the expression "it's colder than a witch's tit out." Do you know where that expression comes from by any chance?
I have no idea. Are you asking me because you know and you're going to tell me? Or do you legitimately think that I would know that?
It seems like something you might know. I don't know.
Okay.
I just...
Interesting.
Yeah. I was going to use that expression and I'm like, what? Where does that even come from? Why is a witch's tit cold?
I don't know.
All right. I'm glad we could settle that.
All right. So... each episode, we start off by kind of checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
I've actually been into quite a bit. Obviously, I kind of spoiled it on last week's episode, what I'm going to end up talking about. But I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies, so that's been fun. And I went and saw Moana with my wife.
Okay.
And I think I ended up liking it a lot more than you did. I know you talked about it on the last episode. I've had The Rock's song, "You're Welcome," stuck in my head for like a week now. But yeah, I liked it more than you did. And I don't know, it might end up on my top 10. I'm not sure yet. I haven't started putting that together. But what I am going to talk about more in depth is Westworld.
Okay.
So Westworld just wrapped up its first season last Sunday. So whenever this comes out, it will be a little over a week ago. I really loved the first season of the show. Have you watched any of it?
I have not watched a single minute of it.
Okay, so I'm going to avoid all of the twists and turns and spoilers that kind of happened in the first season, just because I'd imagine at some point I would assume you'd end up watching it, but
for sure.
Even for our listeners who don't have HBO or HBO Go, just in case they end up watching it. This show is just full of amazing actors. There are great performances in the show. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins is in it, so he kind of takes it to a higher level. The plot is amazing through the first 10 episodes. There's a lot of great twists and turns, and all in all, this show is just really an astounding study of like human psychology and the perfect display of sci-fi. Like it's exactly where I like my sci-fi at.
Okay.
It's human enough to where you can relate to it, but there's that futuristic element of it that makes it sci-fi, and it's really cool and it's a lot of fun. I wanted to get all that out of the way because anytime it seems like you and I talk about stuff, even when if it's reviewing a movie we love, we dwell on the negative. And as I kind of went through and gathered my thoughts on this show, I did have a lot of negative thoughts come to mind. So this show the first season is 10 episodes, and sometimes as far as the story goes, it took a lot of time to get from point A to point B, and there was a lot of unnecessary disposition. I usually talk about how 22 episode seasons are too much, and for some reason this show just being 10 episodes seemed like too much. It's just there was some fat that could have been cut out, or whenever you have such a short season like that and there's not really anything to cut out, you could have made the stuff that you had in there better. I think you could have got to the point quicker sometimes instead of beating around the bush a little bit with some of the twists and turns I was talking about. This season kind of leaves us with more questions than answers, unfortunately. That's obviously what they were going for. I think they're setting up a big season 2. But it was pretty frustrating because this show starts off by raising a lot of questions, and it leaves you in the dark for most of the season. And by the time stuff starts to you start to get answers, more questions are coming up instead of just conclusion. And while some people probably really like that, it was kind of frustrating for me. The show does end pretty strong. That being said, it sets up for what I'm sure is going to be a really interesting and chaotic season 2. I believe the creators of the show have actually said that if season 1 is about control, season 2 is about chaos. And they definitely set up for that with the cliffhangers that we saw in the first season. Unfortunately, we do have to wait until 2018 for it. I don't know what part of 2018. I would imagine the beginning of the year, but it is going to be a bit longer of a wait to get to that second season. I wish, we talked about this last week, and I do wish that I had steered clear of some of the fan theories surrounding this show, so that some of the twists could have caught me by surprise. Some of the fan theories did end up coming true, and I think there were so many fan theories. I believe we mentioned it last episode. Like I said, some of them were bound to be right. And unfortunately, the ones that I heard were the ones that were correct. There were a lot of interconnecting storylines in this show. Not all of them were as entertaining as one another. There were a lot of times where you're focusing on this one storyline and I'm really just wanting to get back to the other one. I believe I said it the first time I talked about this show. I really like the stuff that takes place in Westworld a lot, but the stuff that kind of takes place at their headquarters wasn't as interesting. That kind of changed as the season went on, but still, for the most part, I found myself caring about certain storylines more than others. I don't know. I'll probably just go ahead and wrap it up there. I would say some of the season did fall short of my expectations. This show's getting a lot of praise, and I don't think it's by any means perfect, but I was hoping for this to kind of be my next Game of Thrones, my next big HBO show, and I don't know that it's there yet, but it's built a lot, and it has a lot of momentum going forward, and I think that there's going to be great things to come on this show. So if you didn't watch season 1 yet, I would do it now before it's spoiled for you, because I think that this show is going to be quite large.
So you mentioned that season 1, there's more questions than it has answers.
Yeah.
And I think from what I gather from Reddit and IGN and whatnot, it seems like that's kind of half of the fun of the show for some people, because I do see a lot of people on different forums and whatnot kind of theorizing what's going to happen and why this person does. I mean, I've not seen any of the show, so I don't really read a ton into it, but I just see the headlines and whatnot, and it just seems like it's kind of the fun of the show, kind of trying to figure out what's going on. For me, I don't really kind of get into that stuff. I like the showrunners and the writers and stuff like that to tell their story. And sometimes obviously that's disappointing. You talked last week about Dexter and how that didn't finish very well. So sometimes them telling their story is kind of disappointing, but I don't know. I like to know the least I can about something going into it.
Yeah, I definitely suggest watching it. I think that you and I have a similar enough taste to where we'll probably be on the same wavelength with this show. I don't want to make assumptions about your opinion, but I kind of see us probably being on the same wavelength there. So I do recommend it, but I would say I recommend it now more than ever, just so it doesn't get spoiled for you, because there are a lot of twists and turns that could be spoiled. So
cool.
What are you into, dude?
I'm into a little known thing called Harry Potter.
Harry what?
Yeah, so Tyler and I have discussed many a times on the podcast that we have similar tastes, like Tyler just mentioned, and we are a nerd culture podcast, and so we kind of just talk about what we like. That doesn't mean that what we like is better than what other people like. There's so many things in nerd culture that it's kind of crazy to try to keep up with all of them. And one thing that I never really got into when I was younger was Harry Potter. I didn't get it. I didn't read the books when they first came out. And then I watched like 75% of the first movie when it first came out, and I thought it was boring as shit. And I kind of just wrote it off as that. Like, I didn't get it, didn't really like it. And that was kind of that. Like, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it. My wife is kind of a mild fan of the franchise. I wouldn't say she's a Potterhead or anything like that. I think that's what they call themselves. I don't know.
That's fucking dumb.
Anyways. And so when we first started dating, she got me to watch all the movies, and I think it was a couple of weeks before the last movie came out, we watched all of them, and then we went and saw the last one in theaters. And I actually liked a few here and there, but for the most part, I didn't really get into it. And I was like, okay, well, I watched all of them. I gave it a shot. I'm kind of done with it. But recently, I think it was like 3 or 4 episodes ago, I mentioned that I had started to get into Audible and start reading books on tape, and I was like, well, I'll give the first one a shot. Yeah. It's only like 8 hours long. I was like, I can knock that out in a couple of days, the pace I had been listening to these other books. And so I was like, and if I don't like it, whatever. And I really got into it a lot. Like I can understand why people like it. I don't think that I'm going to like it once I get through everything as much as some people I've seen, but I definitely have a new appreciation for it. Her writing is really good, especially considering it was kind of geared towards kids, and I'm almost 30 years old and I still really appreciated just the way that she writes and just how the little things that she does that pay off later. Like she had to have put in a shit ton of planning into the books because there's things that she'll mention or a character will mention in the first book and it doesn't actually pay off or start to pay off until like the third book. So it's really interesting. I actually went through, I started this like 2 weeks ago. I just finished the third book today, which again, I'm not reading. I'm cheating. I'm listening to it. It's a book on tape. So I haven't kind of dove in completely yet, but yeah, I've really started to enjoy it. I actually bought the entire 8 films on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I thought I saw that box set sitting in your living room when I came over. I didn't know if you already had it. I've actually gone back and forth on buying that before. So
yeah, I thought it would be kind of cool once I started listening to the first one and I started to really dig it. I was like, it would be kind of a fun little thing to kind of revisit the movies because now I have this base of knowledge now going into it. And I do actually appreciate the movies a little bit more than I did before. It's kind of weird because I was told that the first movie kind of follows pretty closely to the book, but it being a book, there's a lot more detail that can be put into a book, obviously, that can't be put into a movie. So there's a lot more emotional attachment that you get with the characters. It makes the movie a lot more enjoyable. So I could understand why people really kind of went crazy for those movies when I didn't even get it when I first watched it. Because I watched it when it first came out. I was like, this is fucking boring. But I get why people liked it because they had that base of knowledge that I didn't have. And so I really liked it. And what makes it really great, and I feel silly talking about it because it's been out for so long and people love it. And obviously I'm just kind of saying things that have already been said about it. But when you strip all the like wizard stuff and all the fantasy, it's really just about these characters, which, I mean, obviously I didn't go to a wizard school, but it kind of reminded me of one of the best times of my life was going to college and hanging out with my roommates and just going on weird adventures with them. Again, we weren't in a wizard school. So, I mean, when you strip away all that stuff, I kind of related to some of these characters because of that. Especially in the first book, Harry is kind of an outsider. He hasn't had very many friends. And I've talked before on the podcast that I was bullied a little bit in like the 6th and 7th grade. And so I didn't have very many friends. And so I kind of related to that as well. So when you strip away all the wizard stuff, it's just really solid, well written characters. And then when you take that into a movie, yeah, it's a 2.5 hour movie, but it's like a 9-hour book.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more detail put into the book, obviously. So you definitely have that base of knowledge and it makes the movie a lot more enjoyable. So I'm actually reading, and again, reading is in quotes, obviously, because I'm just listening to it, but I've been reading the book and then me and my wife have been watching the movies when I get done with it. And I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a fun little project that I didn't even know I was starting a couple of weeks ago. And like I said, I just finished the third book, which was actually, if I remember correctly, my favorite movie when I had watched them originally. So I'm really looking forward to watching the movie. We'll probably actually watch it tonight.
You guys are fucking crazy.
Saturday night watching Harry Potter.
No, what's sad is one of my nerd year resolutions was to watch all the movies, and we're 3 weeks away from the end of the year, and I haven't even started that. And you're fucking like listening to the books and rewatching the movies. It's like, and I can't even get myself to pop in the first Blu-ray. So,
well, we'll probably be done in a couple of weeks if you want to borrow them.
I think that I'll probably be able to get it once Christmas is over. I'll probably binge the movies that week leading up to New Year's. So I think I'll achieve that nerd year resolution. It's just been something I've procrastinated all year.
For sure, it was just kind of a weird thing. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I was really starting to get into Audible and reading, again in quotes, certain books, and I was just like, you know what? It's a short one. I had a credit on Audible And so I was like, I'll just read it. And if I don't like it, then I watched all the movies. I read one of the books. I was like, I gave it a legit shot. And I've been really digging it so far.
Yeah, I know I've told this story before, I believe, but I tried reading the first book in like 6th grade. Like I was like the perfect age. I was the age it was written for, and I couldn't finish it. Like I just really disliked it back then too. So
really?
I don't know what it'd be like watching the movies. And if I enjoy the movies, I'll give the books another shot, but I don't foresee that happening.
Cool, man. All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week. We like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I read a book that came out a few weeks ago, but I just got it in the mail this week, and that is After Death, #1.
Cool.
Which is written by our boy, Scott Snyder.
It is.
And is illustrated by... Shit, what is his name? It's like John Lager? Sure. I have it in my notes somewhere, and I'm going to get to it as I talk about it, and it's going to piss me off. Anyways, it's I'm not very familiar with the artist, but apparently he's pretty well known. I'll talk about the art really quick before I get into the plot. The art's is amazing. He uses like watercolors, or what looks like watercolors, and it's really innovative and cool, and I've never seen anything like it in a comic before. So I was really turned on. I should not have said it that way.
That was a weird way to say that.
I was going to say turned on to this book by the art, but the art was amazing, and
I'm very erotic.
Yeah, I'm interested in revisiting some of the stuff that he's done before, just because it's really cool and it's beautiful, and you can tell that he puts a lot of time into it. But anyways, the book itself follows a main character named Jonah. So basically, the premise of this book is that mankind has discovered the cure for death.
Okay,
but this issue is the first of 3 issues, and it does not really dive into that too much, which I thought was weird. It's a really slow burn. This book is pretty thick. I guess they were originally Snyder and Leigler. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I apologize. But they envisioned it as a graphic novel, and it was supposed to come out last December, and for some reason it's just now coming out, and they've split it into 3 large format issues. Okay. So it's longer than the average comic book. It's pretty thick, but it's not quite a graphic novel. So that being said, this is a third of the story, and it barely even touches on the idea that mankind has discovered the cure for death. So this issue is more about just meeting Jonah and kind of learning what makes him tick. And a lot of the issue is flashbacks that he's telling us about, like some of his earliest memories with his family, so on and so forth. So I'm guessing that that's just setting up future issues so that we, just basic storytelling, so we care about the main character. So this book, like I was saying, it does have a lot of flashback. It bounces back and forth between Jonah revisiting his past and what's going on in the future, where he's been working at this place for like 50 years and obviously, again, doesn't die because they've discovered the cure for death. This book is cool because it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's like a third comic book, so like with your standard panels, but about 2/3 of it are almost like a picture book for adults.
Okay.
Just like standard paragraphs with art kind of fit into that. So it's unlike anything I've ever seen before, and it's really interesting. It was a really cool way to read a comic book and read a graphic novel. That being said, I think that this book probably would have worked better had they released it as like complete, as opposed to splitting it into 3. This particular issue, it was not necessarily hard to follow, but the whole time I'm trying to figure out where the cure for death kind of fits into everything, and this issue wasn't about it, and so it wasn't really what I was expected. This issue in particular ends really abruptly, and kind of like I was talking about how Westworld left me with a lot of questions, this issue also leaves me with more questions than answers as far as the story goes. The good thing is, obviously, it's only a third of the way done, so the answers will be coming in the coming months. I know that you shared it on our Facebook and our Twitter this week, but this is being picked up to be made into a movie.
I figured that would be part of Nerd News.
Yeah, I figured I'd throw it in here. Obviously, very happy for Scott Snyder. I believe this is the first time his work has been picked up for a cinematic feature. I know the Court of Owls were on Gotham, and it was in that Batman vs. Robin movie, but I don't believe anything else he's written has ever been turned into a movie before, so I think that's probably pretty cool for him. But honestly, from the issue that I read, I don't really see the cinematic value yet. Okay. I assume that's coming, and that the filmmakers that picked up the rights know more than we do, obviously. But I do appreciate the slow burn, and I'm looking forward to the next issue that kind of delves more into the sci-fi aspect of it.
Yeah, this is something that I'm really kind of looking forward to. I haven't picked up the first one yet. I'm going to kind of just wait until it all comes out and then kind of get it all at once. I know a lot of things, and I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but I know a lot of things just get picked up just so they can get it before everybody else, and then it never ends up getting made. So hopefully that's not something that's happening with this, because I'd like to see him. Yeah. I mean, obviously he's a great writer, so I'd like to see more of his stuff get picked up.
What was I saying the artist's name was?
I have no idea.
John Lumiere or some bullshit. His name is Jeff Lemire. So
you were way off.
Really super fucked that up. So Jeff, if you're listening, I apologize, dude, and to our listeners that were like yelling at me through whatever they're listening to us on, I apologize. It's Jeff Lemire, and apparently he's done a lot of great work, so I do apologize.
All right, cool, man.
What'd you read?
Well, this is actually kind of a big episode for me. I talked about Harry Potter, which is obviously a big franchise in nerd culture. I'm going to finish my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time here in a little bit. We've been doing this podcast for about 3 years, and Tyler and I have talked a lot about how we're big fans of TMNT. I have a Donatello tattoo, but the comic has actually been has not been really discussed a whole lot on this podcast. I know Tyler has talked about the TMNT universe, but we've never really discussed a whole lot the main book, mostly because when I got into comics, I've always been into comics, but when I really got into comics about 5 years ago, they were already like 20 issues in. Yeah. And so what I should have done is I should have just gotten a couple of the volumes and then just picked up where I was at and just kind of done the issues from issue 20 or whatever it was at the time. That's not what I did, because it's TMNT and it's a big deal for me. I was like, well, I'm finally back into comics. I'm going to comic book shop every week. I'll just start picking them up from now, and then I'll just backtrack, and then I'll just start from issue 1. I was like, it probably won't take me very long. Fast forward to like 5 years from that. I finally, like the last, I think 6 or 7 months, finally finished it. Finally finished backtracking, and I'd been kind of reading as I was going. And so I finally got caught up this past week. It only took me years to do it and 64 issues to read, and it's been kind of a huge deal and kind of a big weight off my shoulders, just because it is a huge franchise, and it's a thing that kind of got me into nerd culture to begin with. It was one of the first things that I kind of nerded out over, and I'm really happy that I've finally got caught up, and I'm really happy to say, and of course I'm biased, but this is probably the most consistently good comic I've read in a long time. Like, from issue 1 to issue 64, it has been a solid. I mean, of course, there's been issues here and there, and there's been characters introduced here and there that I wasn't crazy about, but from issue 1 to issue 64 has been just really, really solid, which I'm surprised, because I hated TMNT Mutants in Manhattan, and it was actually written, that game was actually written by the guy that writes TMNT. Because the scripts are done by Kevin Eastman, who created TMNT, but the guy that actually writes the dialogue and everything is, I think his name is Tom Waltz, and he actually wrote Mutants in Manhattan, which is a garbage game. Do not play it. And so it's been one of those comic books that from just, I mean, every story arc just kind of checked every box for me. The City Fall story arc is probably one of the best story arcs I've read in a really long time. It was fantastic. It was basically everything I want from a TMNT story, because they do introduce a lot of weird characters in this book. And the City Fall was just perfect because it didn't really have a whole lot of outside influence. It was just the Turtles versus Shredder and the Foot Clan. And that's what I want from TMNT. Yeah, Krang is awesome. I love those storylines, and they can be really cool and well done. But for me, it's Turtles v Shredder, and that's what City Fall was, and it was fantastic. They do have a couple of things here and there that I can nitpick. I'm not crazy about Old Hob. I kind of want him and his little gang of mutants, other than Slash, because I love that character. I kind of wish that they would go away. They just keep hanging around, and that kind of bugs me a little bit because they're kind of silly. And the artwork on this book, now normally when you have a long running series like this, the artist will change eventually, but they do it in a weird way. Like, they'll do it almost by like story arc, and it's always like this same 3 or 4 artists, and they just kind of like rotate. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe the release schedule. I mean, it's only once a month. I don't know if it's something with a release schedule or what, but there's like one that's like super cartoony, and it just really bugs me because it goes from like dark and gritty, and then there's one that just like the very next issue will be like super cartoony, and it bugs me because I mean, he's a good artist. I just don't like his style. The way he draws the turtles kind of bugs me. And there's one guy, and I wish I had written down his name. Not that I would pronounce it correctly, because I know it starts with an S, and it's really long. So I apologize for that, but it's pitch perfect. Like, I love the way he draws the turtles. So I kind of wish he would just do it the whole time. Other than like a few characters here and there and the artwork, it's probably my favorite comic right now.
No, that's awesome. This is one that I buy religiously, and I have not read an issue.
Oh, really?
It was one of those things. Same thing with you. I remember it was right when we started getting back into comics, probably a year before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
And I remember a new arc had started, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can jump into TMNT. And then it just kept building and building and building. And now it's become just something I buy and collect, because in theory, I'm a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, but I am so far behind. That's why I jumped at the TMNT Universe comic to kind of start at the #1. And I talked about it a few issues ago, and I'm kind of out of the loop because it does tie into that main arc. But that is something I really regret, is not being caught up with that comic.
I wish. I mean, I like the movies. I really do. This recent reboot, I thought, got shit on. And I mean, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I thought it was a lot better than most critics did. I would love to see like these turtles get their movie, because it's strange, and I know it'll never happen because it's a little bit more grown up. And I know for some reason the TMNT universe is kind of geared a little bit more towards kids. I was brought up with the cartoon, so I guess I can understand that. But now reading the comic book, and I've collected a few issues of the old comic book, and their origins aren't necessarily like geared towards kids. So it kind of bugs me, because I think this would make a really awesome TMNT movie.
Yeah, I mean, we still have, so if they keep the pattern and they reboot it like every 15 to 16 years, we still got a few reboots left in our life. Yeah. So maybe they'll get to that one before we die.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it, right?
Kind of depressing.
That's kind of, I don't know, man. That's how I think about things. Like, I've thought, how many more Batmans am I going to see before I die?
That's probably a healthy way to look at it. You just start counting. You don't count by years. You just count by Batman cycles.
Yeah. It's like, I wonder if I'll ever see this Batman story on the big screen. It's like, well, they got probably so many more Batmans until I die, and I don't know.
Interesting. Your mind is very interesting.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
All right. So that's it for comics. What do you have for nerd news this week?
So nerd news this week. Every week we talk about the big nerd headlines, and it was a huge trailer week.
It was.
And so we will get to those. I'm going to knock out a couple non-trailer related stories first that are pretty straightforward. So unsurprisingly, Luke Cage was announced for season 2.
Yep.
It doesn't say when it's going to air, but they've announced a bunch of fucking seasons of Netflix shows, and they got to get through Iron Fist and the Defenders next year first. So I'd imagine they'll start kind of seeping out at the end of next year in 2018. But we got The Punisher, Daredevil season 3, Jessica Jones season 2, Luke Cage season 2. So a lot of shows coming our way.
I find it funny that they would even bother like putting out a press release.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it seems like it'd be a no-brainer at this point, unless you're going to announce like when it's going to film or when it's going to be released. Don't bother, because we knew that this was coming.
Oh, for sure. That was one of the highest watched shows on Netflix, I believe, or if not the highest watched show on Netflix. So absolutely. I mean, definitely a no-brainer. Next is, I guess, Simon Pegg kind of teased that he's currently writing Star Trek 4.
Okay.
So that might be coming to us. He wrote Star Trek Beyond, which we both gave favorable reviews to. So I would be very curious to see what he could do with the franchise. I really like Simon Pegg quite a bit. I think he's pretty funny. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, for sure. I liked Star Trek Beyond. I think a little bit more than you do. I liked it more than the other two.
Oh, yeah.
Not saying that I didn't like the other two. I did. I just thought it was a lot more fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked a lot of the character work at the beginning as well. So I definitely look forward to another one.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So now let's get into some of the trailers we saw. So
okay.
Almost as soon as we started or got done recording last week.
I mean, it was within like a half an hour or an hour after we got done. Yeah.
The Guardians of the Galaxy 2 trailer got released by James Gunn. So that first one that we've seen was kind of like a teaser, just kind of thrown together. This was what he considers to be like the first big trailer, and it was a lot of fun. I'm really psyched for this movie. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is still probably my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And this movie, I know it's just a 2-minute trailer, but I can't imagine how it won't deliver from those 2 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. It looked awesome. I mean, it was exactly what you wanted. And as kind of disappointed as I was with that first little teaser or whatever you want to call it, it was almost like polar opposite. Yeah. I was like, okay, here we go. Like, yeah. I wasn't worried because, I mean, it was 45 seconds or a minute, whatever long. And I knew I trust him, and I wasn't worried, but it was just kind of nice to see a for sure trailer that was exactly what I wanted it to be.
I mean, it was 2 minutes of funny and fun. And yeah. It was just so great. So I'm really looking forward to that movie quite a bit. So next one was the Spider-Man trailer, Spider-Man Homecoming. It was released a couple days ago. In addition to the trailer, they announced that the second Spider-Man movie in that franchise is going to come out July 2019. But back to the trailer, there's a lot that goes on in that 2.5 minutes. So what'd you think, being the big Spider-Man fan?
Oh, I didn't watch it.
Did you really not?
No, I'm just fucking with you. Of course I watched it.
I remember you didn't watch a lot of the Star Wars trailers leading up to Force Awakens, so I wouldn't have been too surprised.
No, I mean, I thought it was awesome. I mean, it's what kind of with Guardians, I thought that was exactly what I wanted it to be. I probably will try to avoid anything further about the movie. I mean, I saw the first trailer. It was cool. This is definitely one of the franchises that makes me a little bit nervous. We've talked about this kind of in the past, where there's some franchises where we can kind of sit back and relax because we're not emotionally involved. But if it's a good movie or a good sequel or whatever, then we'll have fun with it. But this is definitely one of the ones that I'm a little bit nervous about. And I saw what I wanted to see. I feel a lot better about it. I love the fact that he's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. I think that's going to be fantastic. It's going to really work for that character. I really liked the little Avengers joke at the beginning. I thought that worked really well with the character. And yeah, it was what I wanted it to be.
Unfortunately for me, like, I don't get me wrong, I loved it. And I think Michael Keaton's going to be amazing and so on and so forth. Like, maybe we'll finally get the Spider-Man we deserve on the big screen. But I hope that they don't use Iron Man and Tony Stark as too much of a crutch.
Okay.
Like, I like the idea that he's in it and kind of picks up where we leave off with the characters in Civil War, with Tony dropping Peter back at his house, and like that's a funny moment in the trailer. But I like one of the closing shots is of him swinging next to Iron Man, and I don't know, I don't want the character's first solo outing for the cinematic universe to be a team up movie, So I like the idea of Tony being there and popping in every so often to kind of reaffirm that, yes, this takes place in the cinematic universe, and who doesn't love Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal as Tony Stark and Iron Man. But like, I don't need the climax to be a big hero battle that Iron Man's involved in for Spider-Man's first solo outing with Tom Holland under the helm.
See, I kind of disagree, because we've been waiting for so long for him to be in the universe.
Yeah, but now Tony's in it and Happy's in it, and it feels like an Iron Man offshoot.
At least I've complained in the past with, like, when Avengers came out, it was really good, but it kind of dampened a little bit the solo superhero movies, because now you've established that they help each other. So why wouldn't, when Captain America gets in trouble, why wouldn't Iron Man come and help him out, or Thor, and so on and so forth?
Because Bucky killed Iron Man's parents. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I was just using that as a hypothetical. Anyways. So I kind of like the idea of we've already established in Civil War that he's a part of this universe. So why wouldn't Iron Man come?
I guess thinking about it, it might make a little more sense because, I mean, Tony gives him the suit and maybe he feels responsible if Peter were to get hurt because he kind of set him on this path by roping him into Civil War. So I guess I could kind of see that and kind of see him taking responsibility there and not wanting something bad to happen to the kid. But I still want to see like Spider-Man versus the Vulture, like at the core of it. I don't need Tony Stark tagging in and making it a handicap match or something, you know? Yeah. So
did I just convince you? Did I just change your mind?
Kind of a little bit. I could see why. I could definitely see why Tony would take an emotional interest into what happens with Peter because he's giving him these gadgets and setting him on this superhero path. And if he dies at the hand of the Vulture, like he'd probably feel pretty shitty about it. So. I guess I could agree with that. And then I saved this last one for you because I know you probably jizzed yourself when you watched it.
I did.
War of the Planet of the Apes also came out, so just a huge trailer.
I thought you were going to talk about Transformers.
I'm purposefully leaving that one out. I didn't watch it, but War of the Planet of the Apes. So pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't have a ton of thoughts on it. Like I love Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think this looks amazing too. I think Woody Harrelson's going to be an amazing bad guy. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I just want to kind of turn it over to you to get the master's opinion on it.
I don't know about all that, but I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, as excited as I can probably get for a movie. One thing, I mean, I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I've talked about it in the past. It's my favorite movie of all time. I really dig it. But if there's one thing that I could kind of point to negative about that movie is the fact that the humans aren't that important in the movie. Just judging by the trailer, it's kind of nice to see that it looks like the humans play a lot bigger role in this movie versus Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But that was one of the things that I liked about Dawn was the fact that it was really Caesar's story. So it'd be kind of nice to see them go in a little bit different direction. I don't know if you noticed this, but this is a little bit of a tangent, but it really, really bugged me that they did this. But so I watched the trailer on IGN. I go to IGN a couple of times a day, really, at this point. They actually have director's commentary of the trailer now.
Good Lord.
Matt Reeves did commentary of the trailer. And I was really, interested, should I watch this? But then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that because I watched the trailer and that's my thing now. I'm going to watch it. But other than that, I don't really want to know a ton about the movie. And the movie or the trailer does a really good job of not giving you too much, but I feel like if I listen to him talk about it, he does give really good commentary on Dawn. So I definitely suggest watching that if you haven't already, if you dig that movie, which you should because it's awesome. But definitely check that out. So I'm sure he says really cool stuff about the trailer, but I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, no, that's weird. I know that you had also posted something on our Facebook about teasers for trailers, which is dumb as well. So,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, at the core of it, trailers are to sell us on a movie. And I know for nerd culture, it's become like a bigger thing because it's our first look at this or that and we're excited and yada, yada, yada. But at its soul, it's an advertisement and you're teasing an advertisement and that's just silly. So
yeah, it's getting a little out of control.
For sure. I definitely agree there.
It's weird that somebody attached to the movie would do it. I'm used to, okay, they release the trailer and then, of course, I don't know what it's called, but IGN does their little shot by shot.
Rewind theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that. But I can get it because it's IGN and they have to put out stuff and people eat that shit up. So I get that. But for somebody that's obviously a huge part of the movie, it's just kind of weird that he would do it.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if he kind of had his arm twisted on that one.
Probably.
All right, dude. That is, I believe, all I have for nerd news.
All right, cool. So this point of each episode, we kind of morph into our main topic. This episode is going to be part 3 of our top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. It'll actually be kind of just my episode from now on. I'm going to finish with my list. I did I think it was like 3 weeks ago, or maybe even 4 weeks ago. I did my first episode through my 10 through 6. Tyler did his 10 through 6 last episode. And so I'm just going to pick up where I left off. As a reminder, I had a couple of honorable mentions. I had the IT Crowd, Louie, and then my 10 through 6 was as follows: The X-Files, That 70s Show, 30 Rock, The U.S. Office, and Breaking Bad. I guess I wouldn't say that I was surprised that our 10 through 6 didn't really match up, but I have a feeling that our 5 through 1 are going to match up a little bit more. Maybe not
we'll see.
Match up like my 5 is also your 5,
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a couple that are on my 5 through 1 that are also going to be on your top 5 as well.
So you did make your list?
Yes, I did.
Did you check it twice?
Shut up. I was like, when you said that, I was like, why wouldn't I? I'm about to talk about it. That'd be a really weird thing to improv right now.
That was a big setup for a really cheesy, dumb joke. So
yeah.
I'm gonna be.
We're throwing the term joke really loosey goosey right now.
I'm just saying, like, if I ever have kids, I'm gonna be like the best at dad jokes, man. So, anyways, I just wanted to get that little bit in before I hand it over to you for your 5 to 1.
I'm really glad that you interrupted my spiel for that.
Anyways, 5 to 1. Let's go.
So number 5 will be actually pretty quick. It's Parks and Recreation. Tyler and I did. It was episode 36. We did a Parks and Rec retrospective. 2 times too many is the episode title. I had to look that up, by the way. So I'll make this pretty brief. I'll go ahead and put a link to that episode in the show notes. So if
I don't know, man, is that early enough in our library to where people should be avoiding that episode? Or
no, I say
the
the first 15. To be safe, the first 20, but I say the first 15.
So we had found our footing by that point.
And if you remember, we actually had to do that episode twice. So that we had fine-tuned that. Yeah, because we had just gotten our new mixer, and I was still trying to figure out how to use it, and the volume was all fucked up. And so we had to scratch that. It was originally going to be a bonus episode. Not that anyone that's listening really cares about this, but it was originally going to be a bonus episode because we were still bi-weekly at that point.
That's right. Dude, I forgot about that. That sucked.
Yeah, I was pretty upset about that. But anyways, Parks and Rec, like I said, a lot of this is going to be rehashed from that particular episode. Kind of started off as kind of an Office ripoff. It had the mockumentary type of style. The first season wasn't great, but it was short and kind of set the stage for the second season. And once it kind of found its groove and kind of dropped the gimmick of the mockumentary, like they didn't really explain it. They just kind of stopped doing it. And I mean, it worked for The Office, and I get why The Office did it, and it worked for that show, and they played off it. But the Parks and Rec just didn't need it because it had such great characters. And it's one of those shows that I kind of have a hard time thinking of who my favorite character from that show is because there's so many great ones. I mean, Andy, of course, comes to mind right off the bat, but then you had the kind of the deadpan humor of Ron, who's great. Tom is kind of annoying, but it works within the whole construct of that series. Leslie carries, of course, the more of the emotional kind of weight because you feel sorry for that character because she works so hard and she's not necessarily very well respected in the town. I will say that April's character is probably my least favorite, so it's not easy for me to pick out my favorite, but definitely my least favorite. I don't really like that character. She works well with Ron a little bit, but other than that, I'm not a huge fan of that character. I just think that once that show kind of found its groove, it was just so fucking hilarious, man.
No, I definitely agree, and I'm not going to say too much about it because it may or may not come up on my list. No,
I assume that it's going to be one of the ones that match up.
Yeah, like that show connected with me, and it was one of my favorite shows of all time. Obviously, I mean, it is going to show up on my list, to be honest, and I just love it so much. It's hilarious, and I can rewatch it over and over and find joy from it.
For sure. So moving right along, I'm going to go to number 4, obviously, and it is Game of Thrones. It's actually the first show on my list that is still currently on air. I guess you could kind of technically say that X-Files is still kind of on the air. I'm hoping that it's still on the air, because if not, that last episode was fucking horrible if they don't continue moving on with the show. But I actually kind of got into Game of Thrones late. I didn't read any of the books. I'd like to say that I'm going to circle back, especially on audiobook, and try to read the books, but
it's not fucking reading, for the love of Christ.
I know, I say I can't. I say it with quotes, but I can't say it with quotes because you can't see me.
I'm sorry that was so aggressive. I'd be like,
you've never read the books.
I'd be like, I just read all the Beatles albums.
Shut up. I know, and I qualify it so many times it's probably irritating.
I'm just gonna be shut. I'm sorry.
Anyways, I got into it late. I actually think that they were 3 seasons into it before I finally borrowed your Blu-rays. And I got sucked into it immediately. And a lot like I talked about with Harry Potter, when you kind of strip it down, no dragons, no like medieval swords and all that shit. When you strip all that stuff down, which is cool, don't get me wrong, it's all about the characters, and it's just it actually kind of reminds me of like a mobster show. Like there's so many like working pieces, and there's so many people backstabbing so many other characters, and it's just really fascinating. And I mean, there's a lot of boobs in there, so that never hurts.
Yeah.
So it kind of checks every box for me, because I am a big fantasy nerd. I love Lord of the Rings and so on and so forth. So that stuff is cool, but at the core of it, it's really about these characters. And one thing that I like about this show that's a lot different than other shows, and it's almost kind of, I wouldn't want to say predictable at this point, because it's not, but when it first started, it was one of those great shows, because in a lot of shows, like when you have these main characters and they put time into developing the characters, okay, well, they get in a jam, they're going to get out of it somehow, because they're a main character, they're a fan favorite, they're not going to kill this character off. And the show does. It punishes characters for having flaws. And I really appreciate that, because you don't see that very often. So that's one thing that kind of draws me to the show, and is one of the main reasons why it's so far on my list, considering it's still on air and it could really jump the shark at any moment. But I doubt
Dexter.
Yeah, for sure. Jon Snow could just become a lumberjack. So I really appreciate the fact that it punishes people for making mistakes and having flaws in their character, which doesn't happen in a lot of shows.
Yeah, no, this show is amazing, and it's one of the there was not a lot of shows that I have to watch week to week. And I don't want to get behind on, like, even Westworld, as much as I liked it, I got behind on a little bit and had to catch back up. This show, I'm so scared of spoilers, and I just want to experience everything, not knowing what's going on, what happens, that I watch it as soon as I can. And I can't say that for a lot of shows. So I'm very invested in the characters, very invested in the storylines. And I mean, obviously we've talked about it and reviewed a few seasons. I love it so much. Yeah,
for sure. That being said, you mentioned spoilers. Are you up to date on The Walking Dead? Because that's a show that I don't even care if I get spoiled anymore. Like, I'm almost to the point where Negan is cool, but I don't know.
No, I watched the first 2 episodes of this season, and I
think I watched the first 3, and then the other ones have been piling up on my DVR.
I don't even, I feel like at this point I'm so invested I have to, catch up on it, but I don't have any plans to. I guess maybe whenever they take their mid-season break, I'll get caught up on it before it starts back up in February or March. But yeah, I'm not interested, to be honest.
So, needless to say, it won't be on your list.
No. Maybe if Frank Darabont had stayed on the show and
for sure
completed his vision, maybe. But yeah, that show shit the bed.
So the next show that I'm going to talk about, my number 3 favorite show of all time, and actually was in the running for number 1 for a while there, is Arrested Development. It's a show that I think was on the air maybe 2 seasons before I started watching it while it aired. And then, of course, it got canceled after the 3rd season. And then it took years before Netflix finally picked it up and got a 4th season, which isn't very good. I mean, for what it is, it's all right. Like, I get that by this point, everybody in that show had become a lot more famous than they were when they first started that show. So they all had their own other responsibilities, and it was hard to get all of them together, and they pieced it together for a season of television that wasn't as good. But honestly, like the third season, I wasn't too crazy about the main storyline with I can't remember her name. She's the bad witch in the stupid Huntsman movies.
Charlize Theron?
Yes, I don't know why I couldn't think of her goddamn name.
I'm more curious why that's the role of hers that you went with.
I don't know.
It's like
I really couldn't think of anything
so much
else.
stuff that's like great and iconic, and you're like, the fucking Huntsman movies.
I don't know. It's the movie that I watched the most recent that she's in. So
Gotcha.
That's why it kind of came. Prometheus, maybe? Like I should have gone with Prometheus.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed now. Anyways, yeah, so she's a character in the third season, which I wasn't crazy about. But it's one of those shows that I used to watch almost every single year from start to finish. I haven't done that in a couple of years, mostly because, again, I'm not crazy about season 4. The joke density in this show is fucking ridiculous, man. I've probably seen it from start to finish, at least the first 3 seasons, probably 15, 16 times. Like I've watched this show a lot, and there's always something that I find in an episode here and there that I'd never noticed before. There was so much planning that had to have gone on with this show. There's so many different threads that they just seamlessly weave in and out. And it's really, really funny.
No, yeah, this show is great. It would probably be on my honorable mentions. I can't put it in my top 10 because I never watched the Netflix season.
Okay.
It's something that I've kind of always meant to do, but I've not heard good things and just never got around to it. And I'd really like to rewatch seasons 1, 2, and 3 before watching that season. So all that being said, I wouldn't feel right putting it on my top 10, even though it is hilarious and I do like it quite a bit.
Yeah, season 4, like I said, I don't mind the way they put it together because I understand it. That's the way they had to do it to put that season out. I wasn't crazy about what happened with Michael because he was always the driving force of the show, of the family. He was really the only normal one in the family. And then to see what happens to him in season 4 is it's kind of disappointing. So I do appreciate what they tried to do with season 4, and I really hope that they come out with a season 5. But yeah, I mean, this show, the first 2 seasons is probably some of the best seasons of television I've ever seen, especially of a comedy, because there's so much joke density in those first 2 seasons. It's crazy to think how just clever they were writing all of this stuff together and putting such crazy and well thought out characters together. It's fantastic.
What has the creator of Arrested Development done since? Do you know? I know he did a couple of things with Will Arnett that just never took off. It wasn't a really shitty Netflix show, was it?
I don't think he had anything to do with that. Maybe he did.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but he did The Wilds, I think, something like that.
Okay, that
with
movie?
Will Arnett.
Oh,
I thought
no.
he was. I'm pretty sure that he was a part of that. He was in a couple episodes of Community, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah,
maybe he was just in that one episode. I don't remember, but yeah, he was in one of the better episodes of Community.
Okay,
so
cool.
Yeah, my number 2 is another show that is still on the air. It's crazy that it's still on the air. It's South Park, which is a show that seems like it's been on the air since I've been alive. Like, I don't remember a time that it hasn't been on air. It's just crazy how long this show has gone on for, and it's still really, really good. It's crazy to me that, yeah, the first couple of seasons weren't great. They're actually kind of hard to watch because they were still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with the show, and the animation is really, really bad. But I mean, once they kind of found their groove, it's really, really funny, man. Like, and to think that they've been on the air for so long and they've just kind of had to change what the show's about so many different times. It's really funny. It was more kind of like a Simpsons-esque type of show at the beginning, and it had the novelty of like 3rd grade kids cursing a lot. Yeah. And that was kind of the big thing when it first came out. I know that was kind of the thing that drew me to the show. I was in the 4th or 5th grade when it came out, and I just thought it was hilarious to see these kids my age cursing on TV and it being a cartoon and all that stuff. But once that novelty kind of wears off, it's still a really, really funny show and well put together. And it's one of the few seasons of TV on DVD. I have the first, I think, like 20 seasons actually sitting right in the same room that we're in. And I'll still watch it here and there because they do some really cool commentary. Like because they're Matt Stone and Trey Parker, so kind of they do their own thing. They don't actually do commentary on the whole episode. They just like, okay, we're going to tell you the important stuff, but we're not going to milk this. And they just do like 5-6 minutes and tell you some really cool stuff about the episode. And then they just bail and you can watch the rest of the episodes if you want. But really, like I would buy the TV on DVD and then I wouldn't even rewatch the season. I would just watch the commentaries. Yeah. And once they were done talking, I would just skip to the next episode. And then when I was done with all of those, I would watch the whole season because I was that excited to kind of listen to what they were going to say about that particular episode of that season. And I remember that was something that me and my roommates really bonded over in college. Like new episodes of South Park would come out on Wednesday. I mean, they still come out on Wednesday, and we'd actually go to White Castle, go get White Castle and come home and, watch the new episodes of South Park. And it was just kind of a weekly tradition that we had when I was in college. And that obviously I remember that and kind of think highly of it. And I apologize to anyone that sat next to me in my Thursday morning class because that did not go well for you. So I apologize for that. But yeah, it was just something that I kind of look back on pretty fondly, and kind of that was our weekly tradition. And like I said before, it's kind of changed since it's been on for 8 seasons. Maybe they're doing 29th season right now. But that can't be right. It's got to be like 26. I've only been alive for 29. And I think it started when I was in the 4th grade. Something around there.
I don't think your math's that good, dude.
My math is definitely not a strong suit of mine. But they kind of just did their own thing at the beginning, and then it's kind of morphed into this more of because the way they make the show is kind of actually crazy. They don't really plan anything out. I know this season was a lot more planned out, but like they'll literally won't start making a show until like Friday the week before it comes out. It's kind of crazy how quickly they can make these episodes. And what happens with that is like they can comment on stuff that literally just happened. With The Simpsons, they have to wait because they have to produce those episodes so far ahead of time that they can't really comment on stuff that's happening right now. By the time they commented on it, we've moved on to something else. So I think that's really cool that they can kind of comment on stuff as it's happening. But then there's always just like those random episodes that are just weird. Like they'll have a really like social satire, like a episode that's really heavy on social satire, and then the next episode the kids will go to a water park and they'll get flooded by all the pee in the water park. And it's just like I think it's fun that they don't take themselves too seriously either. So I think it's kind of fun that they have all the social satire, but then they don't necessarily take themselves too seriously. But I've really liked the most recent season. Like I said, they've obviously put a lot of thought into this particular season, which I would expect with all the stuff with the presidential election. Yeah. Recently. They've kind of had a field day with that, and I really appreciated that a lot. I don't necessarily appreciate them making fun of The Force Awakens, because that's a big part of this particular season. They don't like anything. Like that's one thing that when you listen to the commentary on their TV on DVD, they really kind of trash everything. They don't really like anything. Surprisingly, they liked Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake. I remember that they had an episode that was Dawn of the Dead-esque, and they talked on that commentary about really liking that movie. And I think that's the only thing I've ever heard them say that they liked. They kind of trash on everything. But other than that, I've really liked the most recent season.
Yeah, this is a show that, who hasn't watched South Park? But this is not a show that I keep up with religiously. I haven't watched new episodes of it in years. It's just always kind of been hit or miss for me. And I think part of it is that it's kind of like what you were saying. They shit on everything. And yeah, after a while, that for me just got old, especially if it would be something I liked, like The Force Awakens. It's like, of course, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But, after a while, you don't want all that negativity about, especially if it's about something you like. What I really liked about this show, especially like whenever I was super into it in like the earlier 2000s and the mid 2000s, was that it steered clear of political stuff for a long time. I guess you made it sound like they are kind of having a field day with the presidential election. And I know that it kind of got a little bit more political maybe towards the end of that decade. But whenever it was, popular to shit on George Bush and talk about how dumb he was and yada, 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 they steered clear of all that. Yeah. And they kind of went a different route with their comedy, which I appreciated. They didn't go for the low hanging fruit that like SNL was going for at the time and was finding a lot of success with. So, I don't know. This show is definitely has its classic episodes. It definitely has its episodes I really enjoy. It's just not something that I've really kept up with.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I mean, it's tough when a show goes on for that long to kind of stay at its peak. Like, I mean, it's far from its peak. I mean, it's still really good. But I mean, season like 7, 8, 9, 10, like that was the best. I mean, they've had some really solid seasons here and there, and some story arcs like Imagination Land was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely loved that. But I mean, I could see like some people saying like it's past its prime, because I definitely see that for sure. But I still appreciate, and I like the fact that I appreciate, like I was saying before, like how much detail and hard work it goes into making something like that in basically less than a week that they have to do write and produce all these episodes. So I appreciate that. I just like how they've evolved the show over the course of 20 plus seasons, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right. So number one, for those that know me, shouldn't come as much of a shock. This hasn't changed basically since I was like 15 or 16. My favorite show of all time is Seinfeld. I mean, it's basically, for me, the perfect comedy. Like, they always joke around that it's a show about nothing, but in reality, it's the show about these characters, and it's just kind of fun to hang out with these characters because they're not good people, and I'm a bit of an asshole, so I kind of relate to these characters, and
No, you're not an asshole.
And so I kind of, especially when I was in high school, like watching the show, George and Jerry kind of like overanalyzing every little thing that's happened to them on a date or something like that. And in high school, I didn't have a ton of dates. And shut up. The few dates that I would go on, I would like just over analyze every little thing, and I would just kind of live in my own head about it. And so I definitely related to these characters. And again, I'm an asshole, so I kind of related to them being assholes about everybody and not wanting to like hang out with people and just kind of want to do their own thing. And I definitely appreciated that. And I love this show so much. It's another show that I've talked about this with That 70s Show and Arrested Development and Parks and Rec. And it's a comedy that I can watch over and over again, and I can appreciate things here and there that I caught before, but I just have a new appreciation for it, or jokes that I've just now recently found out. And I know that a lot of people kind of shit on the season finale or the series finale. And I get it. It's not the best episode. I get what they were trying to do with it. I understand that they kind of wanted to get all the highlights back and kind of talk about how bad people they are. And I think it worked. I mean, again, it's a very far-fetched concept. I get everybody's complaint about it. I just didn't hate it as much as everybody else did. I kind of think it worked in its way, the way what they were trying to do. And I appreciate that the first conversation that Jerry and George have is the last conversation they have. I think that's kind of a fun little Easter egg. But yeah, I mean, this show has been my favorite show for a long time, and I don't see that ever changing. Like I said, Arrested Development definitely gave it a run for its money, but with the third season not being as good as the first two, and then taking such a long break off, and then the fourth season not being close to as good as the first two. I mean, it's never going to touch Seinfeld at this point.
Yeah, this is a show that has always just kind of slipped through the cracks with me. Like,
really?
I've seen reruns here and there. I remember when it was really popular, my dad really liked it, and I think that him really liking it, I didn't like. I don't know. Like, I think I was just a little too young for it when it was in its prime. I think I don't know. Did you watch it when it was on the air?
I did. And I think I might have shared this story before on like one of our first nerd origins, where there's an episode called The Contest. I think that's what the episode's called. And they and they can't say what they're doing, but they're basically saying who can go the longest without masturbating. but it's on primetime television in the 90s, so they can't actually say that. So I actually, for the longest time, had no idea what they were talking about because that when that aired, I was a little kid, so I had no idea what they were talking about. I thought I had just missed something.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny rewatching that episode. The episode is fantastic, but it's an added layer of personal comedy for me because I just laugh at myself for not knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah. No, this show's on Hulu, so I think that it's something that I'll definitely watch. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people consider it like one of the best shows of all time and talk about how great it is. So it's something that I definitely want to get into, even if I'm 20 years too late. But I will eventually watch it for sure.
Cool, man. All right. So that's it for my top 10 favorite film. I almost said films. God damn it. TV shows of all time. I think we're going to do Rogue One next week. So Tyler will finish up his list 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, I think there's going to be a couple that match up. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well, but I'm looking forward to Rogue One more. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm excited for your list, but I mean,
well, come on.
Yeah, Star Wars. For sure. So we end each episode with just kind of a nerdy question. Tyler and I take turns asking each other what our favorite blank is, and it's my week this week. And so I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit. I'm not going to ask what your favorite whatever it is. We do this from time to time. We change it up a little bit. I talked about Harry Potter and it being a franchise that I kind of slipped through the cracks for me. And I didn't really get it until just recently when I started reading the books. Again, reading is in quotes, and then watching the movies again. And I've really kind of attached myself to it. And I'm digging it a lot. I was just kind of curious what franchise that kind of slipped through the cracks for you that you would kind of like to circle back and revisit and try to see if you might appreciate it a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and start. It's going to be weird. My answer is going to be weird. So I would like to get into Dungeons and Dragons. I think that would be kind of cool. I know I have some comedy friends that are big into it, and they talk about how much I would like it. And it seems like something that would be kind of cool, but not necessarily just Dungeons and Dragons, but just kind of tabletop, kind of the role-playing tabletop gaming is a big deal in nerd culture. And I never really got into it. I like Dice Masters. Tyler and I have talked about that in the past. We haven't got to play recently. But I really got into that, and I think I would really like that. It's kind of daunting because, like we've talked about with comic books, it's hard for you to kind of pick and choose what you want to read. And I think tabletop gaming is going to be a huge money suck. Just like comic books, it's like, what do I play? What's good? And there's a lot of collecting involved with a lot of these games, so I don't know where to start. But I really one day would like to get into it.
No, man, that's a good one, especially just because, Dungeons and Dragons had that stigma as like
for sure
the biggest nerd thing you could possibly do for the longest time. And now with nerd culture being so prominent within our society, like it'd be kind of cool to revisit something that's like the grandfather of the stuff that we love. So yeah, that's a good one for sure. I'm going to go a similar route for different reasons. I tried World of Warcraft when it first came out.
Okay, cool.
And tried to get into PC gaming. And I'll be honest, the only reason I did it was because my closest friends in high school were really into it, and they still really are into PC gaming. And it's something that I'd rather play console games. And that was the big one that they were always into. And I know they play different stuff now, but that is something that I don't get to do with them. I don't get to see them as much anymore. We're all adults. We all have jobs and wives and so on and so forth. So we don't get to hang out a lot, and we live in different areas. So if we all were still playing that PC game together and took time out every week to do that, I think that would be really cool. So getting into World of Warcraft, which is still really popular, or some of the other role-playing games that they do on the computer,
like League of Legends.
And that kind of stuff. I think that would be a lot of fun. But PC gaming And just so I can tie it to a franchise to make it qualify for this question, World of Warcraft just kind of slipped through the cracks for me. I'd rather sit and play a console game.
Cool, man. I thought for sure one of us was going to pick like a movie franchise or something like that. So it's kind of funny to me that we both picked something somewhat similar. Tabletop gaming for me and PC gaming for you.
I thought about doing like Lord of the Rings, but I think as much as I could revisit that all I want and I still won't appreciate it. So,
really?
Like I don't mind it, but it's never gonna, the people that love Lord of the Rings I'll never be there. So
yeah,
that wouldn't work.
All right, cool, man. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. They're both at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nerds You're Looking For. Check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. You can subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Basically, any podcatcher you use, we're on it. That really helps us out a lot. We appreciate that. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are The Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.